I was a 32-year-old medical intern, eager to make my mark in emergency medicine. Just a few weeks ago, I finished my last summer shift at the local hospital. The hospital had been built in the late 70s, and at night, it felt both familiar and very unsettling. The dim lights barely illuminated the sterile rooms. I focused on my responsibilities, trying to ease the weight I felt. On my second night, I heard something odd. I was near the long-term care wing when whispers came through the intercom. They weren't clear, just static mixed with soft voices. I figured it was just broken equipment. Still, curiosity tugged at me, but I shook it off. Then, things began to change during my shifts. The lights flickered over my head, and a chill ran down my spine. I thought I saw a shadow move, but when I looked, nothing was there. It felt unreal. I laughed it off, blaming my tiredness. I mentioned it to some coworkers, but they just rolled their eyes. "You're just exhausted," they said. Maybe they were right. In the middle of my shift, I heard laughter echoing from the old pediatric ward. I didn't want to check it out. I walked down the deserted corridor, my heart racing. Each step echoed, and I felt a cold shiver creep over my arms. The doors to the ward were locked. I pressed my ear against the door, hoping to hear something, but only silence greeted me. That laughter returned night after night. I tried to sleep in the break room, but the whispers haunted me. Questions swirled in my head about the hospital's dark past. Maybe it was all in my mind. I could barely tell anymore. I thought they were just bad dreams, but they felt all too real. On my fourth night, while checking on patients, I heard the whispers again. They sounded urgent this time. My heart raced, and the static buzzed louder in my ears. I turned to walk back, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw a small figure. It stood just out of reach, framed by the light. I froze. I thought I asked if they were okay, but my voice wouldn't come out. The weight of that gaze felt heavy. I couldn't remember how long I stared. Then, I heard laughter again. I turned back to the figure. There was nothing there. I was scared. I rushed back to my station. I told myself it was stress. I tried to focus on my patients, but that feeling lingered. The laughter replayed in my mind, and I couldn't shake it off. Every odd sound felt like it carried significance, like the whispers were warnings. After that night, my shifts blurred. I felt like a shadow, haunted by what I couldn't understand. I wondered if I was losing my grip on reality. On my last night, I swore I saw the figure again. Only, this time, it felt closer. I didn't want to face it, but I had to know. I turned, ready to confront whatever was watching me. But there was only darkness. I felt a cold gust of air brush past me, and that laughter echoed once more. I took a deep breath, knowing I might never know what that figure wanted. I never looked back again. The next night, I decided to confront my fears head-on. It was my first shift back since that unsettling encounter. I felt more exhausted than ever, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something in the shadows, something I needed to understand. I entered the hospital, trying to steel myself for the long hours ahead. The lighting felt even dimmer than usual, accentuating the eerie stillness of the building. As I made my way to the nurse's station, whispers fluttered through the air again, almost like a taunt, reminding me of the earlier shifts. I shook my head, trying to brush it off. During my rounds, I couldn't ignore the magnetic pull of the pediatric ward anymore. Every step toward it felt like walking on a tightrope, balancing between fear and indescribable curiosity. I reached the door. To my surprise, it was slightly ajar. The dim light spilled out into the hallway like an invitation. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open. The room was empty but felt charged with energy. Toys lay scattered across the floor, remnants of a time when laughter filled these walls. The silence was oppressive, but I felt the whispers grew louder, echoing off the walls. I stepped inside, cautious and alert. That's when I saw a small, crumpled piece of paper lying under the desk. I knelt to pick it up, my fingers trembling slightly. The handwriting was childish, jagged, and messy. It read, "Help us." My heart sank. I looked around, suddenly feeling the weight of countless eyes upon me, as if I was being judged by something unseen. Brushing the hair from my eyes, I stood and turned back toward the door. That's when I heard the laughter again. This time, it was closer. Panic washed over me, and I swung around, scanning the room. Nothing. Just shadows dancing in the corners. I noticed something out of place, a thick, dusty curtain that had been partially drawn back. I felt a pulse of fear and curiosity intertwine in my gut. I approached it slowly, every horror movie I had ever seen running through my mind. What was behind it? I pulled it aside with a quick jerk and gasped. There, in the far corner of the room, stood a small child, no older than 6. Her back was to me, and she seemed to be looking at something on the wall. I opened my mouth to call out to her, but the words wouldn't come. Then she turned just slightly, her voice a whisper carried on the air. "They need help." And just like that, she vanished, leaving behind an unsettling silence. I stumbled backward, panic gripping me tight. I raced out of the ward, my heart pounding in my chest. The laughter echoed in my mind. I couldn't understand what was happening. I had to find someone, but who would believe me? As I reached the nurse's station, everything around me went dark. The lights flickered out one by one, plunging the hospital into total darkness. I stood frozen, dread spiraling inside me. The whispers became frantic, swirling like a storm, and then I realized I was not alone. Someone, or something, was in the shadows with me. I could feel the air thicken around me, each breath a struggle. The darkness was alive, pressing in like a shroud, and I stumbled back blindly away from where I thought the nurse's station was. I had to move, but my instincts screamed at me to stay still, to listen. Then came the laughter again. It was faint but unmistakable. A childish giggle mixed with the sounds of distant footsteps. My heart raced as I strained to hear, trying to pinpoint where it was coming from. I took a cautious step forward, my hands reached out to feel for the counter along the wall. I couldn't stay. I needed to get to the exit. But as I turned, I realized I wasn't alone in the hallway. Figures formed in the shadows, shapes that flickered against the faintest light filtering in from the windows at the end of the corridor. They were indistinguishable but felt overwhelmingly real. "Help us," the voices sounded as though they were coming from everywhere, yet nowhere at all. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice shaking. Silence. The only reply was the echo of my own fear. Something urged me to flee, but another part of me wanted to stand and confront whatever was happening. I chose to move, deciding to head toward the exit. I stumbled forward, trying to navigate the darkness, when suddenly I heard the sound of rushing air, like a door being pushed open. I stopped. Everything went quiet except for the soft sound of my own heartbeat. The whispers had stopped. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of small footsteps, a light patter coming closer. I felt a chill run down my spine. I turned slowly, my breath hitching in my throat as I found myself face to face with the same little girl I had seen in the ward earlier. Her eyes were wide and glittered like glass, her mouth forming a small, pleading frown. "You have to help them," she said urgently, her voice trembling. "They need you to find them." "Who? Who needs help?" I asked, stepping forward. But before I could reach her, she faded away, leaving a cold air in her wake. I didn't understand. My breaths grew heavy as uncertainty clouded my mind. I was losing my grip on reality. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I fumbled to pull it out, desperate for some connection to the outside world. The screen lit up, casting a dim glow in the darkness. There was a message: "Get out. They're coming." My blood ran cold. I turned to move toward the nearest exit, dread bursting in my chest. But then I saw a dark shape emerging from a nearby room. It was tall and looming, almost blocking the way. I froze, paralyzed by fear. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, desperate to wake up. But what if this was my reality? I had to escape. I stood there, heart pounding in my ears, trying to convince myself I was seeing things. The figure seemed to absorb the dim light, casting long shadows that danced like tendrils. It took a step closer, and I finally registered its shape, an outline of a person, tall and thin, draped in what looked like a hospital gown. I backed away slowly, feeling for the wall behind me. My breath came out in frantic bursts, and with each step I took, it moved with me, closing the distance. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its gaze pinning me to the spot, tugging at something deep within me. Fear, yes, but also an inexplicable urge to understand. "Just leave me alone," I shouted, the words bitter on my tongue. My voice echoed down the hallway, swallowed whole by the oppressive silence that surrounded us. The figure paused. My heart skipped a beat. I had hoped it would retreat, but instead, it tilted its head as if considering my words before it took another, more confident step toward me. Panic surged. I turned and ran. My feet pounded against the tiles, the sound echoing like thunder in my ears as I navigated the dim light. I shot down the corridor, ignoring the familiar turns. My mind was racing, filled with thoughts of the little girl and the message on my phone. What did they want me to find? As I turned a corner, the faint giggle echoed again, this time louder, sharper. It pierced through the stillness, and I stumbled, nearly crashing into a wheeled cart. I skidded to a halt, breathing heavily. I was losing control. My focus slipped further as I turned, searching desperately for the girl. "Where are you?" I called, my voice a mixture of anger and desperation. The sound bounced off the walls, but it wasn't the reply I sought when I saw it. The door to a small room was ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hall. The laughter grew louder, swirling around me, encouraging me. Against my better judgment, I approached. With trembling hands, I pushed the door open. The sight that met my eyes froze me in place. The room was filled with crumpled paper and overturned chairs. A single flickering bulb hung above, illuminating a wall covered in drawings. They were childlike but unsettling dark figures with twisted limbs and wide, grinning smiles. The same faces etched into the empty void around the hospital. I stepped inside, drawn closer despite the growing dread. In the corner of the room, I noticed a small wooden box. A gentle, lingering light escaped from it, calling to me like the whisper of the girl. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I lifted the lid. Inside, a collection of tattered toys lay scattered, a doll with a missing eye and a music box that seemed to hum with energy. An icy rush of wind swept through the space, making my hair stand on end. Suddenly, the shadows seemed to sharpen, and the figure I thought I had escaped flickered into view in the doorway. "Help us," it whispered, its voice a haunting echo. I backed away, realizing with horror that whatever had been trapped here was now forced to confront me. There was no escaping the truth any longer. I had stepped into something much darker than I expected, and I might be its next victim. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. The whispers wrapped around me like a vice, squeezing out rational thought. The figure inched closer, its presence as cold and daunting as the shadows it emerged from. A sudden thought struck me. I needed an escape, but the only way out was past it. Before I could turn to run, the laughter surged again, now a cacophony of giggles echoing around the room. They seemed to come from the toys, the doll-less blank eye glinting in the flickering light. "Help us," the figure echoed again, more insistent this time. I felt trapped between curiosity and fear. The urge to understand pulled me, but terror dug its claws into my mind, warning me to flee. I glanced down at the box, the music box specifically, its faint melody managing to drift through the chaos. Mesmerized, I reached for it, my fingers brushing against its smooth surface. As I touched it, the giggles stopped abruptly, replaced by an almost palpable silence. For a moment, the world felt frozen, the shadows holding their breath. I lifted the music box and opened it, curious about what tune it would bring forth. The little ballerina inside began to spin, and with it came a wave of memories, images of children playing in the sun, laughter ringing through the air, but underneath, something else lurked. The visions turned hazy, dark figures creeping into view, faces twisted and filled with anguish. I slammed the box shut, severing the connection, and looked up. The figure was closer now, its features finally coming into focus. A young woman, her hair wild and eyes hollow, stared at me. Her mouth opened, but instead of a voice, a rush of cold wind filled the room, sending papers swirling around us. "Please, we need your help," she pleaded, the words escaping her lips like the breath of desperation. I hesitated, torn between empathy and fear. Who were these lost souls? Why did they want me? My heart pounded as I searched for an answer, but all I heard was the clamor of fading laughter. "I can't help you," I shouted, my voice breaking, panic surging anew. I turned and bolted from the room, throwing open the door. The hallway stretched endlessly before me, shadows flicking at the edges of my vision. Then a soft voice whispered from behind. "Don't run. We just want you to listen." I paused, teetering between fight and flight. Behind me, the girl emerged further into the light, her expression softening. "You're the one who can break the cycle. We've been waiting for you." Something in her eyes sparked a flicker of hope, yet uncertainty gripped me. What did she mean? My breath quickened again, caught in the web of confusion as I faced the one thing I didn't understand. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and the music box in my hand vibrated with energy, a deep hum reverberating through my body. I had a choice to make: keep running or face whatever awaited me. But before I could decide, everything went dark. The shadow swallowed the room and the girl vanished in an instant, leaving me in overwhelming silence. Panic clawed at me as I stumbled into the darkness, unsure of what would come next. I had to find a way to escape, but first, I needed the truth. I stood in the suffocating darkness, every sound amplified the rapid beat of my heart, the quiet rustling of air around me. I couldn't even see my own hands in front of my face. The thrill of fear coiled tightly in my gut, pushing me forward, but where to? Then, suddenly, a sliver of light broke through the oppressive blackness. I turned toward it instinctively, moving cautiously. Hesitation surged through me with each step. It felt as though unseen eyes followed my every move, pressing against my skin like a chill wind. As I drew closer to the light, I noticed it emanated from an open door at the end of the hall. I paused, the feeling of being watched intensifying. I could still hear echoes of laughter floating through the air, faint and distant like a memory I couldn't quite grasp. "Hello?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. Silence answered me, heavy and thick. I took a deep breath and stepped through the doorway, praying for a hint of safety on the other side. The room revealed itself as a small, dusty office lined with bookshelves filled with dusty, worn books. Papers lay scattered across an old desk, and I caught sight of a small, flickering lamp in the corner. As I crossed the threshold, it was as if the shadows receded slightly, allowing warmth to touch my skin. That's when I saw it, a small child's shoe tucked under the desk. I crouched down, my heart racing as the whispers crept back into my mind. I reached out and picked it up, examining it closely. The shoe was dusty, but yellowed fabric showed signs of wear, almost as if it had been forgotten here years ago. "Where are you?" I whispered, the words falling from my lips without thought. As I held the shoe, I felt the air shift around me. The temperature dropped sharply, and before I could react, the light flickered violently. I squinted into the dark corners of the room, dread spilling into my veins. A rush of giggles erupted from behind me, and I spun to find nothing but shadows. "Stay with me. Don't let go." The girl's voice echoed in my mind, clearer now, filled with urgency. Backed against the desk, I scanned the dim room again, my heart pounding as I searched for the source of the laughter. "Who are you?" I shouted, the question ricocheting through the shadows. "I'll show you," came the girl's voice, now whispering directly in my ear. I felt a breath against my neck, freezing me in place, and my skin crawled with the sensation of lingering presence. Then, the child's shoe slipped from my fingers and landed with a soft thud on the floor. I glanced down, heart racing. Had I neglected a clue? The laughter grew louder and more chaotic, swarming around me, pulling at my feet. Before I could comprehend what was happening, the walls of the office shifted, trembling as if alive. I stumbled back, bracing myself as a beam of light shot out from the darkened hallway, illuminating something at the center of the room. In that blinding flash, I saw her again, the girl with hollow eyes, this time standing beside a shadow that loomed larger than life, reaching towards me. It was a moment of clarity, and I understood, I wasn't just a bystander anymore. I was part of this nightmare. As the shadows folded around me once more, I felt the world tilt, narrative threads tangled in a web of chaos. I was running out of time. Then, darkness swallowed me whole. My last thought echoed through my mind: I needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. I woke up gasping, my heart still racing from the nightmare that blurred the lines between sleep and reality. I was lying on a cold, wooden floor, the faint smell of dust and mildew clinging to the air. My eyes flickered open, trying to adjust to the dim light of the room around me. Had I passed out? The office felt eerily still, but the whispers from before still clung to the edges of my mind. I pushed myself up, brushing dust off my clothes. The shoe lay just a few feet away, waiting. Before I could reason with myself, I crawled towards it, feeling drawn to its presence. I picked it up again, shaking slightly, and studied it as if it held all the secrets of this place. "Come on," I murmured, "where did you come from?" Suddenly, there was a loud bang that echoed through the space, a door slamming in the distance. I jumped upright, adrenaline flooding my veins again. The laughter had quieted to a hollow silence, as if holding its breath along with me. I had to leave this room. I had to find out where I was and, more importantly, who the girl was. With renewed courage, I made my way toward the hallway where the light had first emerged. Each step felt heavy, the floor creaking beneath my weight. As I reached the doorframe, I stopped. The hallway stretched before me, heavier than before, shadows flanking either side like lurking predators. I steeled myself and stepped out, determined to uncover whatever lay ahead. Along the corridor, the laughter returned, twisting through the air like a taunt. "I'm not afraid," I shouted at the echoes, but it felt like a lie. I moved forward, eyes darting between the flickering shadows. I reached another door at the end, different from the one I had woken in. It looked newer somehow, as if it had recently hosted countless secrets, waiting for my discovery. The handle felt icy against my palm. I hesitated, weighing the restless energy that thrummed through the air. With a deep breath, I twisted the handle and pushed the door open. The room beyond was a storage space piled high with boxes, old furniture, and half-torn curtains hanging limply. A sudden chill washed over me, and I took a step back, feeling a pull of fear mixed with curiosity. That's when I noticed it in the corner, an old, tarnished mirror. The glass was cracked, reflecting my worried face back at me. I hesitated, torn between the desire to turn away and the inexplicable urge to look closer. As I approached the mirror, the whispering laughter grew louder again, swirling around me like a storm. "You have to see," the girl's voice rang clearer now through the chaos. I dared to touch the cold surface of the glass, and at that moment, the room darkened, shadows converging around me. Then, in a shocking flash, I saw her again, the girl, but this time she was standing in the reflection, with a forlorn expression on her face. I flinched backward, heart pounding against my ribs, as her lips formed a silent plea. "Help me." The message fell through the cracks of the air, echoing in my mind. I stumbled back, realizing that this wasn't just about uncovering her past. This was about my safety too. Just then, the door slammed shut behind me, cutting off the path of escape. Panic surged through me, clawing at my throat. I was trapped in the twisting maze of the unknown, and I could feel the darkness closing in. There was no choice but to confront whatever waited on the other side of the mirror. I pressed my hand against the surface of the mirror, feeling the coolness seep through my fingertips. I wanted to pull back, to escape this surreal moment, but I was rooted in place. The girl's expression was haunting, eyes wide and desperate. I leaned closer, wanting to hear her voice again. "What do you need from me?" The room felt like it tilted for a moment, and I wondered if I'd lost my grip on reality. The whispers swirled around me, growing louder. I could almost make out words, phrases jumbled together like a chaotic song, as if the walls were alive with secrets. I pulled back, breath hitching in my throat. The shadows in the room shifted, flickering like flames, and I suddenly felt a chill crawl up my spine. Just then, the reflection in the mirror changed. The girl was gone, replaced by an image of the storage room itself, dark and empty, but somehow more foreboding. Then, I noticed something moving in the reflection, something I couldn't see in reality. A figure loomed behind me, shrouded in darkness. I whipped around, but nothing was there. Just the untouched stillness of the room. My heart raced as I turned back to the mirror, searching for the figure. "What is happening?" I breathed out, but there was no answer. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, this time piercing through the silence like a shrill warning. I staggered back, and as I did, the figure began to emerge clearer in the glass. It wasn't just a shadow anymore, it was forming into a shape. A part of me wanted to flee, but another part was anchored, compelled to stay. If the girl needed help, I had to find out how. "Show me," I begged the mirror. "Show me what I need to do." The girl's face reappeared, and this time, she looked angry. She was trying to communicate something urgent. I felt a surge of frustration. What else could I do? I was trapped in this room, suffocating in confusion. Before I knew it, The mirror grew brighter, pulsating as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Light poured out, illuminating the storage room and casting long shadows against the walls. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through me, compelling me to approach again. That S when I saw it, an outline pressing against the surface of the mirror. It was a hand. Not the girl S, but a darker, twisted version that sent icy dread coursing through me. I stumbled backward, but the door stayed locked tight, the escape still barred. "Let me out!" I yelled, desperate now. I didn't want to confront whatever that hand belonged to. I was just a passenger in this nightmare, but then, in an alarming twist, the whispers shifted to a single word, echoing through the air. Free. It hit me hard. Free. The girl needed to be freed from something tied to this place. I looked back at the mirror, heart racing. How? The glass rippled as if the question stirred it awake. The shadows filled with an energy that surged and crackled. There was no going back now. If I wanted to get out of here, I had to unlock whatever was hidden. As I reached out again, the darkness pressed closer, and I knew I had to confront whatever dwelled on the other side, because I wasn't just fighting for the girl. I was fighting for my own freedom too. As I leaned in closer to the mirror, the sensation of dread seeped into my bones. The hand pressed against the surface seemed alive, twitching as if trying to break through. I took a deep breath, summoning the courage I didn't know I had. I needed to understand more to see what was on the other side. I touched the mirror again, and this time the energy shot through me like a jolt of electricity. The room around me started to shimmer, blurring until it felt like I was caught in a dream. With every heartbeat, the whispers intensified, a chorus of urgency. Free us. Help us, they echoed, drowning out my thoughts. The girl's face returned to the surface, her eyes widening in fear. I could feel her desperation all over again, as if it were a weight pressing down on my chest. What do I have to do? I shouted into the mirror, hoping against hope she would give me a sign. Suddenly, the glass cracked, spiderwebbing across the surface. I jumped back, heart pounding. The shadowy figure behind me moved again, this time a bit closer. It seemed aware of my every breath, lurking in the corners of my mind. Stop! I shouted, panic creeping into my voice. But the figure remained, patiently waiting. Before I could process my next move, the mirror pulsed again. A new scene emerged within it. Images flashed rapidly, flickering lights, a hospital corridor, a room with blue walls. I recognized that place. It was the old hospital that had been abandoned for years. The laughter returned, echoing through the storage room, but now it felt more sinister. I turned, half expecting to find someone standing behind me. Nothing. Just the oppressive silence that hung in the air. I was alone, yet not alone. The unsettling thought gnawed at my mind. Why the hospital? I murmured. What does this have to do with you? As soon as the words left my mouth, the shadows in the mirror twisted and writhed, forming into a chaotic dance. Images slowed, locking onto the face of a man in a white coat, his smile unsettling. I leaned closer, squinting to see more clearly. Just then, the figure behind me seemed to charge forward. I spun around, but again, there was nothing there. My heart raced. The air felt heavy, almost electric. Without realizing it, I took a step toward the mirror. What are you hiding? I demanded, voice trembling. The light in the mirror consumed me, and I reached out to touch it once more. That S when the laughter stopped. Quiet fell suddenly, deafening after the chaos. I felt a pull, a compelling force that seemed to beckon me. The whispers turned soft, almost tender. Help us, they pleaded. My skin prickled with foreboding. This was a crossroads, and I had to make a choice. I could turn back, leave it all behind. But the memory of the girl's face, her pain, lodged itself deep in my heart. Then, the mirror flared one last time, casting a bright light around the room. The figure rose behind me again, more discernible now. Thin. Tall. Anguished. I wasted no time. If I was going to confront whatever awaited me, I had to act fast. The light brightened to a blinding flash, and as the figure slipped into clarity, I finally understood what waited on the other side. I felt my breath hitch. I was not ready for what I was about to unleash. I stumbled back as the figure coalesced into something more defined. There it was, a woman, draped in a hospital gown that hung loosely on her gaunt frame. Her once sparkling eyes were hollow, and the grin that stretched across her face twisted into something resembling despair. "Help us, please," she echoed, and my mind exploded with confusion and dread. The laughter I had heard so many times turned into anguished cries, distorting the cheerful memories I had spun around this place, transforming them into a haunting reminder of pain and suffering. I was no longer just the medical intern, I was trapped in a nightmare filled with wandering souls desperate for release. I was breathing in the deep sorrow that lingered in this shadowy realm, feeling suffocated by memories not my own. "Get out!" I screamed, my voice cracking with fear. I lunged backward, desperate to escape, but this room had shifted from a tangible space into a labyrinth of murmurs and faint flickers of light. Then, like a chime in an empty hall, I remembered the music box nestled in the corner. I raced back to it, the weight of what had just happened pulling me down. With shaky hands, I retrieved the music box. Its lid felt warm against my palm. I took a deep breath and flipped it open, letting the notes swirl into the stale air. Instead of a soothing melody, a jarring cacophony erupted, reverberating through the room. Shadows erupted around us, twisting and tightening like angry vines. The chorus of cries returned, now more insistent. "Help us!" I closed my eyes for a fleeting moment, letting the discord wash over me. I concentrated, piecing together the scattered memories of joy and laughter I had felt before, children playing, their faces alight with glee. I needed to reach them. "Please!" I shouted at the figures swirling around me, "What can I do to help?" I grasped onto the music box, pouring all my hope into those simple words. At that moment, the music shifted, the chaos began to clear. The shadows pulled back, revealing the girl once more, her form flickering but resolute. "You need to listen," she mouthed, desperation radiating from her tiny figure. "You must find what's lost." The laughter morphed into an echoing symphony, resonating with a yearning that tapped at my soul. I realized that what lay behind the girl's pleading eyes wasn't just a desire for release, but rather a plea for remembrance. The memories, the souls trapped in this twisted upturn of reality, begged for the truth to be unveiled. With newfound purpose, I turned back to the mirror and reached out. I needed to know what it meant to set them free. The last remnants of the harsh light enveloped me, and the darkness erupted into a kaleidoscope of shifting scenes, a gathering of faces, laughter twisted into screams, turning the hospital walls into a gallery of lost connections. Just as I felt I might be drawn into that cycle, the mirror gave way to a new clarity. Crystalline images of children flickered to life, a small community fundraiser orchestrated by the very hospital I stood in. Their faces shined, filled with hope. Shadows cast from whispered secrets now laid bare before me. The moment stopped, allowing me to understand, I wasn't just here to help these lost souls. I was required to carry their story, a flicker of hope embodied in their collective laughter that had long been dimmed. I woke up in a gasping reality, the brightness of the fluorescent lights blinding me. I blinked furiously, finding myself deep in the empty pediatric ward, the familiar coldness of the hospital replaced by a sharp, lingering warmth. "Help us," the words echoed faintly, repeating the mission I had to relay. I couldn't let them be forgotten any longer. As I navigated back through the corridors, the ominous whispers faded to a mere memory, and I resolved to ensure that the heart of that laughter carried on, unhindered by shadows. Stepping outside under the vast skies, I took a deep breath. The heaviness of the hospital lifted, but lingering questions played at the edges of my mind. Had I truly set them free? Or was this just the beginning of trying to comprehend what awaited me in the corners of the unknown? As I walked away from the building one last time, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching from the shadows. I moved on, carrying their stories in my heart, left forever unresolved, tucked away as echoes fading into the dark.